All right, today we welcome Akhil Agrawal, SVP of Customer Success at Infoseps. Akhil brings over 20 years of experience in his industry, where he's earned a reputation as a trusted advisor to C-suite executives and business leaders, helping them maximize the value of their data. He's currently at Infoseps, where he leads the North American business and customer success team, driving growth, optimizing costs, and ensuring customer satisfaction. Prior to this, Akhil managed global delivery teams overseeing more than 1,500 professionals across North America, ASEAN, and EMEA, ensuring exceptional quality and innovation. On the personal side, Akhil loves reading, is a Calvin and Hobbes fan, and big-time cricket and movie buff. He recently picked up an interest in hiking and exploring trails in the New York and New Jersey area. As a family, he enjoys traveling to different countries with his wife, Vijeta, and two daughters, Avika and Vanya. We are fortunate to have him here today. Akhil, welcome.
Thank you so much, Scott, and thank you for introducing me so well. Looking forward to our chat. Thank you.
I also am so excited to talk to a fellow New Jersey native. I grew up there, and I love the state.
No, yeah, I'm looking forward to host you here whenever you visit here.
Oh, absolutely. I definitely will be taking you up on that. So, just to kind of dive in, I'd love to know a little bit about what sparked your interest in data and analytics. Was there a specific moment during your time, for example, at VNIT that influenced your career path?
Interesting that you asked that, and I had never thought about it like that way. Honestly, to be very honest, I never knew that data analytics is a field while growing up or in a college. But my affair with data analytics probably started during childhood, right? I come from a business family, and my father used to give me and my brother assignments like, okay, so those were the times when there were no computers, right? There were manual ledgers. And he, every week on the weekends, he used to give us, okay, this is the weekly transactions, do the aggregations, come up with what are the top buyers, top sellers kind of a thing, right? So different insights that he would ask us to do that, and whoever would do the fastest will get some reward, right? So probably that's where my love for data or numbers started, or insights rather. And then during college also, I was drawn towards more, or I was pretty strong with quantitative reasoning, data interpretation and stuff like that. But eventually I landed in a software company because that was the coolest thing at that time to join, right? With swanky campus and all those things. But I think I gravitated towards data in that company. And then during first or second year of my professional journey, I got a chance to work on a data warehousing project. And probably that's when I decided, like, okay, this is the field I want to be, or I got. So again, a long answer to your short question, but
I think I love that, because I think it's so funny to think about what our parents guide us towards, whether they realize it or not, right?
No, absolutely, yeah.
So once you graduated from VNIT, you've been at Infoseps for a while now, and you've also just led some pretty big teams across North American and EMEA, as I mentioned before. I would love for to kind of know a little bit about your leadership style, and were there any times throughout your career where you sort of developed or changed that leadership style?
I'm sure what I am today is some of all the experiences, right, that I have working with different sets of people and in the geography, right? So difficult to pinpoint incidents. I'm sure there are a few which would have impacted me a little more than others, but I think I'm more of a situational leader. I have managed to change my leadership styles depending upon the situation. But what I enjoy the most probably is a player coach model, right? Where I am very hands-on, working with my team on trying to do stuff so that I understand the intricacies and I have a little bit of empathy towards what's happening, right? And at the same time, I set the pace, right? So pace setting, as well as a little bit of, if needed, autocracy as well, right? So if I know that if something can be done, I can be pretty autocratic as well, right? At the same time, transformational or pace setter kind of a thing. So I would say player coach model has worked better for me, but there are few things that which has helped me over the years, right? So one thing is, of course, and this probably I've learned from difficult situations when my leaders or my colleagues have done something which I wanted to repeat or which I didn't want to repeat, right? So one thing is keep it simple. So say do is a principle which is dearest to my heart, right? Do what you say and say what you do, right? So I've tried to do that throughout my professional as well as personal life. Another thing is embrace the diversity, right? That is, in my mind, that's the easiest path to innovation. So that I think has helped me a lot, or I understood. And then, of course, if you build trust and empathy around your team, right, you would be more often than not, you will be surprised what they do in difficult times, right? So.
Right. Yeah. I think the idea of diversity, especially when it comes to, a global team, it's very important just because, we have so many different participants that need to be heard and understood, and you actually have to work together. And if you don't, like you pointed out, it's going to be hard to move in the right direction.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So you, when you first started off, you started off as sort of a more technical role, right? You were, like you mentioned, you're kind of in the weeds, and then you kind of moved to managing these large cross-functional teams. I've been myself in sales, business development, and now I'm CEO of a company that we manage a team of executives, and I think there's a lot of challenges that you can run into in that development of that leadership approach. What was it like for you? Any big challenges or anything that stood out to you that was hard transitioning from technical to managing a larger team?
Oh man, yeah. I mean, I think at each stage, I've gone through regular pains, right? Right, from being a technical lead to the department lead, then cross-functional team, or being an organizational leader, right? So each stage there were different challenges, but two things, I mean, and relating it to the question you asked earlier, right? So two transitions which were most difficult for me was moving from technical role to customer success role. And the reason I say that, in a technical role, you are a sought after person, right? People look for you. Whereas customer success is seen a little bit more as an overlay, right? Your customers don't want to talk to you because they see a sales agent in you, right? By default and stuff like that. They don't see a value. I mean, it was a little difficult on my ego, right? From being a very sought after to somebody who's trying to gain attention, right? But over a period of time, you realize that, okay, it is nothing but the value that you bring to the table that will keep you relevant, right? So when I moved to customer success, soon I moved towards defining value or telling the story, right? So that was one thing. Another big transition was leading cross-functional teams. When you are leading direct line of command, right? You know them better, you have a lot of controls. But cross-functional team usually will have your peers, sometimes your seniors in the team, right? Whom you are required to lead. So there also, I think, leading from the back, I think that was one phrase that I read somewhere and then I related to it, right? Take a back seat, right? When you're leading a cross-functional team, your urge to do things yourself or trying to direct, it never works, right? Take a back seat, just help with whenever there's a confusion or or if somebody needs support with decision making, that is the role you play. Otherwise, once you have defined what and why, you have to just take the back seat. So I think those were the two transitions I would say shaped me a lot.
I think it's really interesting that you point out that when you're in a customer success role versus a technical role, even now, customer success can be many different things. For example, the CEO of Gainsight, which makes a customer success product, he highlighted how companies have often had customer success managers in and under revenue leadership, revenue teams. And so their focus ends up being upgrades, expansion, all revenue based. And so, like you said, those people end up being those that you want to avoid because they just know that they're hunting for money. So you really do have to find a way to provide value and actually be a customer agent as opposed to a sales agent.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So transitioning a little bit from the kind of leadership style and a little bit more into just developing relationships with customers. It seems like, there's a lot of different strategies, tactics that you can use to develop these relationships and nurture and grow them. When it comes to customers on a global scale, I'd love to hear your perspective on how you build relationships with customers and nurture them over time.
I was fortunate throughout my career where I've dealt with global scale enterprises, right? So one thing is in global setup, right? When you have a global teams, etc. Term called glocal. I think that was something that I had heard a long back, which is like think global but act local, right? So customize your be it policies, process, framework, etc., to suit to the local style of wherever your customer is based, right? So that was one thing. Another thing is I believe in that framework where consistency brings you credibility and credibility brings you visibility, right? So if you're consistent, you will win that credibility or trust from your customer. Once you have won the trust, automatically your relationship and business both grows, right? So I think those are the two strategies. And third thing is in my role, very early on, I did focus on business value, right? When I told you, I had to find my niche. So defining business value, people are interested in outcome. And when you start talking about outcome, they give you time, and more time, better relationship building, right? So running those customer success programs via a good feedback loop or reviews, business reviews, right? I think these are some of the things, right, that has helped me.
I like especially the idea this consistency increases credibility. I mean we both have kids, and my kids occasionally will say, "Dad, why don't you trust me?" And I'll say, "Well, the last 10 times you have failed to meet the expectations of the thing that we asked you to do." And I think customers really, they can tell, they can notice, they can see, if you don't follow up with an email that you were going to provide them, or a webinar, or some specific ask. And again, going back to this idea of being like a customer agent, they really can tell, they can really see that. So I think that's a really great point.
Thank you.
So AI, it's the new cool thing. It's going to be here.
What's that? I never heard of it.
You're kind of you're really in an interesting place because with all the data and analytics and sort of customer facing time that you have, you've probably seen your whole industry evolve pretty spectacularly in a lot of different ways. I'd love to hear a little bit about what you've seen when you initially started, and then how things have changed over the years, and now maybe with AI.
Okay, so again, going back 20 years and already started to feel a little older now. But yeah, when I started, those were the time when data warehousing was the buzzword, right? And from there on, if I look back in last 5 to 8 years, it has been really dramatic, and rate of change has really gone up, right? Each year you are seeing such a dramatic changes in the way this industry is evolving with explosion of data in the digital world, advancement in technologies, right? All these things, I would say it has made so much that when I started, I never thought that something like these would be possible, right? And when I talk about some of those things like real-time intelligence, right? When we were working on data warehousing project, doing your operational reporting itself was a 3 to 6 months project. And today we are talking about real-time intelligence, prescriptive analytics, right? Using AI agents for driving the customer experience, or for that matter, even the sales process run. So all these things, I think these are some of the real use cases that I have seen evolve, something that we wished or at times we never imagined, right? And those things have come up. But I'm very upbeat about overall the direction which industry is taking with the advancement and all. I think we are solving some real world problem, not only for the business and enterprises, but in the social sector, right? For policymakers, for governments, and all those things, right? At the very grassroots level. So data and AI together, I think it's changing at the grassroots level in general for health and for general well-being. So I'm very upbeat about that. Yeah.
Have you found over the years that when new technologies are announced and introduced, that people get excited about them and maybe try to ram them into the business, but they don't provide value? Have you ever seen examples of that?
All the time.
Okay.
Yeah. So and a lot of times you face a customer who are little convergers or mavericks in their own way, right? And who want to really take on the newest thing on the block, right? And we come across that all the time. But again, in our role, you have to have that business outcome in mind and use that to give it back to or at least make them think about the business value and not use it for the sake of it. I think if you ask me, in last 20 years, there are 3 or 4 waves which has kind of lived up to the hype, right? Of course, after data warehousing, that whole big data wave, right? Even in that, there was too many dimensions, but yes, we all accepted that big data is there. Then this whole mobile apps kind of a wave, and then cloud, which has kind of made everything so much scalable. And now AI, I do think like there is a lot more hype. I think last 2 years were more of a hype and people tried to trust everything. But eventually now it is tapering down and people are really asking those questions. Okay, if I'm doing something, it has to have a business value.
Right.
And we have defined our own framework. I mean, when I say framework, process, right? For any project that you take up, you try to align solution with the business objective, with the pain point and a strategic goal. You try to define upfront on the business metrics or KPIs that you want to measure in. Throughout the cycle, you keep on doing that. And third thing that we do, which is very important, and I think a lot of time we as a solution providers or product providers, right, we tend to miss is on adoption. So once the sell is done or a project is completed or once you have implemented, that focus on adoption is one single biggest thing that will define whether the hype with the technology or a trend will survive or not. And adoption will be the key. So I think those are some of the things.
Yeah, I think that's a great point about adoption. There's so many tools and products that become available to us, and a lot of the time, I think many people, they try them. You know, if you think about like mobile apps, for example, one of the waves you mentioned. You know, you get your phone, and most people are probably going to use Facebook, Instagram, and then Slack or Gmail or Teams or something. Yeah. And then they have hundreds of other apps that they just kind of like disappear, they stop using. So it becomes a big challenge to drive that change.
Yeah.
So as you've seen some of these technologies and innovation play into, you know, the businesses that you've worked with, is there a time, a story that you can think of where there was a project or an initiative that made some substantial change with a customer where they were like enthusiastic or they saw big improvements?
I mean, a lot of them come to my mind, but a very recent one I can talk about, and it is probably not a customer-centric one, but more of an internal project that we ran, or rather
good,
initiative, right? So 2.5 years back, my CEO, he gave me a one-line statement, right? I mean, and we used to have all these leadership meets, and there will always be a lot of noise, right? Because people are not aligned. When I say they are not aligned, they are aligned towards goal, but not on what's happening day to day, kind of a thing. Different functions will have their own point of view and stuff like that. So he gave me two-line statement: cut the noise and optimize the revenue, right? So that's where I went about setting up the RevOps as a function, right? And the reason I call that out is that was one of the biggest change management initiatives that I have personally driven, where you have to, by definition, when you talk about revenue, you try to focus on sales team, right? Because you can point out 50 things that sales team is not doing, or a customer success team is not doing that they should be doing. But when you realize building up this cross-functional team, that it is all interdependent, right? So as part of RevOps team, I just created a cross-functional team with department heads from product engineering, GTM, sales, and customer success, and then even finance and HR, right? Talent management teams and all those things. And we went about very, very crisp definition of business outcomes, kept on measuring. It was a really, really challenging first few sprints, right? For 6 to 8 weeks, I think everyone was on each other's throat, right? But eventually, once you established that, okay, here is the business outcome I'm measuring, and I'm okay, I'm at 5 out of 100, but I will measure and I will show it to you all, right? And each cycle, unless it is moving, we are not moving, getting out of the room, kind of a thing, right? And from there on, I think today that function is an autopilot. I moved out of that function now, and it is running our overall cross-functional team to improve our better optimization of revenue as well as usage of resources. So again, it may not sound a very technology-led innovation, although a lot of technology was involved. I used latest things, but it was more of an innovation in thinking by bringing in diverse minds. You won't realize how sales problems were solved by a talent management team or a HR leader, whereas finance guy talked about GTM and all that stuff, right? So they gave the ideas and it kept on changing. So innovation at the idea level or a thought level, I think that's where I was most happy about.
Yeah, I think it's often overlooked to consider, the big changes that happen internally. I talked to a CEO recently. He said that every time he joins a new company, in the first 90 days, he thinks about the 3 ways that he can impact the company. One is, how can he impact the customer? Another one is impact the team. And then in the case of, his role as CEO, he thinks about how he can impact the board members. And each one of those is just as important. So I think that's a terrific example. Looking back at a young Akhil, you're still young. We're close to the same age. So, but
feels so nice.
What kind of thoughts or advice would you give somebody who's just kind of getting into customer success or data analytics, looking to maybe eventually become a leader? What's the most important thing they can do right out of the gate?
Apart from being a subject matter expert, right? If you're choosing data analytics as a field, you need to understand the technical landscape or a business landscape. But if you talk about customer success as a function, right? I would say your existence is to make your customer successful, right? That's about right. And one thing that has helped me in that, in a customer success role versus being a technical guy, you have to take pride in your ignorance and not in your knowledge, right? So when you do that, you will start asking and not telling. And when you ask, you automatically listen. So listening is one of the biggest, or rather most underrated quality. People think that they listen, but I think it doesn't happen like that, right? I mean, unless you have asked or you are really curious, you don't listen. And once you listen, you start to understand the pain, and you understand how customer define their own success and not how you define your customer success. And from there on, I think if you keep the feedback loop on, I mean, I don't know whether I answered your question, but I think that is how I have grown. Yeah.
I think when you're young and you're a subject matter expert, to your point, it can often be hard to listen because you feel and you believe so strongly that you know. And then, the older you get, you realize you actually don't know as much as you think. So I think that's a great point, and one that I would definitely agree with, especially on the side of listening. I use this call recording technology that helps me record my calls. And then during the call, it will tell me how much I'm listening versus talking.
Yeah.
And I'm often surprised how much I'm listening or talking. And then I kind of have to pull back a little bit.
Yeah. And I've started doing that. I use a bot to record my meetings, and it gives me nice analysis. So I think some of these technologies also do help when you are able to measure. Like, okay, you were talking 60% of the time in the meeting. That's nonsense. You shouldn't be doing that. Or maybe today it would happen like that. But
yeah, for sure. And that's okay. I invited you here to do that. How about specifically for a younger Akhil? Is there anything that you would tell him? What would you say, to a, I don't know, 18, 20-year-old Akhil?
I will say, but I don't know whether he will understand really, but I will say compounding is for real. A part of it I understood early on, like when it comes for wealth generation, yes, because I knew math and I knew compound interest, I understood that. But in general, compounding is real in every facet of your life, right? So start investing early, invest in your health, right? In your well-being, develop habits towards that, right? I mean, it's not a one-time activity, and habit can be like, okay, once a week, once a month kind of a thing. So invest in healthy lifestyle, in wealth generation, both physical as well as intellectual, and also invest in network building, right? Sooner you start, much bigger impact it has over a period of time, right? So I think I keep on thinking like, okay, if I would have done this 10 years back, things would have been so much easier. And in case of health and wealth, it was very obvious.
Yeah, I think you're totally spot on. I mean, I'm 39 now, and I don't know. I think I've been exercising, walking, hiking, just like you, since I was very young. And I've found it's really interesting. It's like, if I can do those things, and if I can take care of myself and sleep well, everything else kind of takes care of itself for me, which is great.
Absolutely. I mean, you cannot be in leadership positions and not be healthy, right? I mean, although my lifestyle was not a very healthy lifestyle, right? A lot of parties, a lot of things. For a good period of my life, I think I woke up a little late in my late 30s when you start realizing, like, okay, you are not immortal, right? So you start to realize, and I realize, if I wouldn't have started 10 years back focusing on some of these things, probably I would not be doing half of the things that I'm able to do now.
That does seem like the age that most people start noticing that they don't recover as quickly, and they're like, man, that was really dumb.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Looking ahead a little bit towards the future, if you had your crystal ball, when it comes to AI solutions, what do you hope to see? What are you looking forward to seeing?
So I think there are a few things which I am interested in, or rather given that the kind of things we work on, right, as a firm, as a professional outfit, right, some of the things which are drawing our attention is overall de-risking this AI-led transformation or AI-led business transformation. There is a lot of caution. There is a lot of what you say, distrust at this stage, right, for various reasons and or rightful reasons, right. So I think that whole thing I see, I'm monitoring very closely on how it evolves, right. Be it efficiency, right, the overall cost of AI, right, or running the models, etc., right. So be it SLMs instead of LLMs and stuff like that, right, or be it data security, right. We all know that we live in the world where data security or cyber security, no amount of investment is enough in that field. In general, building trust into your AI initiatives by explainability, by doing ethical and responsible AI, right? So I think that whole space, I see that next 5 years are very important on whether this remains a hype or whether we see changes at all levels. Another thing is overall this field of data monetization. I think that is one thing which interests a lot of people now, using data clean rooms and stuff like that, right? So for businesses to be able to exchange data securely to monetize or to drive their businesses better, right? So I think that is another space. I mean, there are a lot of them, but I think, yeah, these are 2-3 things which, at least in near term, I am seeing that will gain traction a lot more than others.
Yeah, just to kind of double click on the data monetization and sort of like teams, I guess, not swapping data, you know, what goes into that? Is it like a complex regulatory problem? You know, do the customers have to opt in? How does that typically work? I mean, if you know much about it.
Again, it's an evolving field, but yeah, a lot of it is regulatory governance related stuff as well. But it usually happens between business associates. I mean, I'm talking about enterprises, right? So
okay,
as a vendor and a client, if they have data that can help each other to do better, and for them to be able to share that data within the regulation, within the privacy rules and all those stuff, right? How do you do that? How do you make it happen? And think of it, instead of 1:1, there are multiple N:2 relationship there, right? How do you do that? How you expose your data without compromising on your business interest as well as regulatory compliances, etc. Right? So it is an interesting field. A lot of technological advancement is happening in that area as well. So yeah.
Super cool. Well, Akhil, it has been great talking with you today. And I just wanted to say how much we appreciate you spending some time with us.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed and getting to know this whole thing about you as well in the process. So thank you so much.
Awesome. Talk to you soon. Bye.
All right. Thank you.